All right, you're live, Mary Lee.
Okay. Well, hello, my Inknashwaniksha Smanati. My name is Mary Lee Jones. My name given to me by my grandmothers, my great aunts, is Smanati. I was named after an individual that used to go and visit household to household and check on people. She wasn't quite like a doctor is today, but she was more like just checking on community and seeing how people were doing. And so I kind of want to start off with that part. My like I said, my English name is Mary Lee Jones, and I want to say a big, huge thank you to the Native Wellness Group for not just today, but for all the time that they've been working on this whole project, this nonprofit piece. I think I met Jolene, I want to say maybe in 96, and I was babysitting her children. And as years went by, I kept seeing her more and more and started to kind of see just the different things that were happening in our tribal communities. One of them was, yeah, definitely Native Wellness Institute and the growth of that, white bison. And so today, I guess the result of that is learning about a lot of the characteristics of what I wanted to be versus kind of who I was destined to be by that Indian name. My mother is Marlene Hunt, and I wish I would have brought like the little video with me, but my name, the Hunt side, stems from books within a lot of the stories along the Columbia River, the Inchiwana. And so historically, my family's name, it circles around this whole idea of watching over people and taking care of each other. And I think that's one thing that we should, all really be bonded together in, is that idea. I see it happen all the time, whether, it's just from one community to the other, if it's welcoming people over by ceremonial feasts, and I'm not going to speak too much to powwows, not that I'm against it. I'm not our rodeos or anything like that. I just know that that happens as well in these communities. I just don't take part in it because of the role that I'm going to share with you about. So, yeah, go ahead. The role that I wanted to share was I'm a food gatherer, and a food gatherer could be, by anybody else if they heard that name, like a farmer or somebody that just gathers food. But that I'm not somebody that just goes in the grocery store and gathers food. That's not it. First thing I'm going to show you is one of the things that I was given, and I've got several of these, my mom's and mine. But typically I would have my hair braided and I'd have it in verse. But this is called a putlapa. A putlapa denotes a food gatherer. And the putlapa, you'll see these sometimes on the dance floor at powwows, but when we're at ceremonial feast, this is to show an identity of the gatherers in the longhouse. And some of these are made out of corn husk. Some of these are made out of yarn. This one is my mother's. And this one is also my mother's. And so some of them are also beaded. But that's what the That's what the meaning behind the Patlapa, the hat is. It's hard to do this in a mirror image here. So typically a food gatherer would wear this, and not too long ago I did like a little presentation. I was really grateful to be a part of it with Lavina, where we was talking about coming of age. Each one of those hats, they cost anywhere from, if you had to buy it, it would be about 300 to, she's up into thousands of dollars, depending on the ornateness of it. And so they're very, very important hats to have, and denotes the kind of work that you do. Several family designs, things like that. But the reason of the importance is, for me, I'm enrolled, and I hate that word. I really hate it. I really hate that word, and I shouldn't say hate, but I'm enrolled Yakima. I'm also Umatilla, I'm Blackfeet, I'm Grovon. And the reason I say that I hate that is because it isolates me into an area. It defines who I am without giving me, or more so my ancestors, the ability to say, this is who I am, this is where I'm from. It's not about conquest, it's not about territorialism, but it's about understanding, this part that I'm going to share with you. So I hope I'm going to go in line. So this is me as a storyteller from a traditional point of view as to who I am. Back in the day, I wasn't always like this. I was a wild child. I ran the campus of Haskell, and even here in the lower valley of Yakima. And sometimes I get reminded of it, but I don't think I'm necessarily ashamed of who I was back then, because I those moments had formed me to who I am today. I do give a lot of patience for my mother for putting up with me, but I think I was probably self-medicating. I used to say like partying, like it was the thing to do, but self-medicating from a lot of the hurts in our bloodline, from probably about 14 years old to, I want to say maybe about 22 years of age. So those years I was really lost. And the one thing that put me back on track was this understanding. And so in those times, in those formative years, now keep this in mind, your background and your understanding is going to have a huge, huge, huge play on this. So if I had to say what's going on in February, you would probably say Valentine's Day. Or if I said what's going on in March, you'd say St. Patrick's Day, and so on and so forth. And I was raised in that way because we were all brought up in the public school system. And in that public school system, they taught us like some of the dates and things to watch out for. They taught us their education. They taught us what it was that we needed to be self-sufficient. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not discouraging education by any means, but I am asking for each and every one of our Native individuals to take it upon themselves to educate yourself within your own family. That's what's missing a lot of the time, is our identity. And so when we're not feeling 100% about answering a question, we don't always want to raise our hand or speak up or admit that we are familiar with something. We don't always have that confidence. And the reason I think that is the way that it is because we've lost our identity. A lot of us, and I don't know how to say this because it's not, I don't believe in like lateral oppression or lateral violence. A lot of us have moved away for specific reasons. Some of us have been pushed away. So we also have like the urban natives. We have the natives that are on the reservation. We have some that are totally dislocated. We have some that, are very centered and grounded. but regardless, we're all of that blood. And so that's what I'm talking about with the education in the school system. If we don't have that, that's our anchor, that's our boat. And so the best thing that we could do is try to integrate the culture into the classroom. And if we can't do that, remember, the first thing that was ever said to you as you were a parent is parents are the first teachers. It's your responsibility. And with saying that, you have that responsibility to advocate for your child when they're not feeling 100% out there, and helping them relate to some of the things that are going inside the classroom to, you know, what's going on outside the classroom. So with that, I'm gonna just kind of jump right in and hope I'm doing okay. I asked Jolene to kind of cut me off because I am, I don't know, this is my favorite thing to talk about. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is my joy. This is my love. This is my pulse. This is my passion. This is my life. So like I was saying, I'm going to put this up here, and I don't know if you can see it. So this is something I made a long time ago, and you'll see all these different pictures. And so this is supposed to replicate kind of our food system here. Over here, this is our salmon. Oops, this is the deer. This is the celery. This is some of the roots. Let's see if I can get that in picture there. Some more of the roots and some of the berries that we have. And so anyway, the reason I made this is I was trying to get our families to understand the importance of who we are. We have a natural curriculum, and we don't have to run together and join heads, and everybody has to get a, you know, they'd have to get a doctorate degree. The stuff that we know we're champions at, we just had to give it a chance. So the first thing that I ask of the youth when I meet with them is to identify what they're wearing. They're usually wearing a wing dress. I don't have a copy of that. I have probably a picture in here, but it's a dress that would identify a food gatherer. And the other thing that we would do is I would help them with their gear. And some of the gear, I think you can see in the back of this picture right here. You can see that's my friend, or my sister, my Longhouse sister, Bubba. There she is. And she's wearing a wing dress, and you can see why it's called a wing dress. Everybody else is wearing jackets, but you'll see that's where we were peeling roots, and that's piache. So the clothing that we wear, and when I say this, I'm saying this as if, you know, you were my 5-year-old, my 7-year-old. I've even had women that were like 45 years old, 60 years old, coming out to dig for the very first time, gather foods. So what's the difference? Why isn't it like just getting carrots out of your garden or something? The difference is understanding that creation story, and that creation story is so beautiful. It's so precious. So with that, when we get out on the grounds, we talk about the importance of life, of your life, of my life, and the life amongst us, the life of the sun that brings out even more life. And then we talk about the creation story, and it kind of varies amongst different individuals and different homes. And so the way that I share it, you know, please don't ever say that's what Mary Lee said and what you said is wrong, because it's not that way at all. We honor everybody's story and everybody's home and their hearts of where they came from. So what I was shared, and I share, you know, the different aspects from the people that I come from. And this is from my longhouse and from my longhouse in Pendleton as well, where I was with my late husband. And so the story goes that a long time ago, man was made, and when he came about, all of these animals and plants were huge. They were like giants. And the creator decided to bring man onto earth. And what ended up happening is he talked and all of the beings were present. And when he spoke, he said, "What am I going to do with you? You're just pitiful. Look at you. You're standing there naked. Your stomach is hollow. You're hungry. How are you going to take care of yourself? What are you going to do?" And man, just being created, looked around and he didn't have an answer. He was just grateful he had life. Well, one by one, each one of these beings stepped up and they spoke. And there was a lot of humility in the whole area in that meeting. And the first one to speak up was, of course, the salmon. And the salmon said, "You know what? I know how important life is. It's very precious. And for that reason, I give my life to you. My life is medicine to you now. And, you know, you can take me in and I will take care of you as long as you take care of me." And so the man nodded. And then the next one to step up was the Yamash, the deer. I don't know if I got a sample of that one. But the deer stepped up and he said the same thing. And in my picture, I think I've got my cousin in there. But he's cutting the deer meat at the table with the family. And he was the first one to say, the deer, or second one to say, "I'll take care of you. And not only will my, you know, flesh and my body feed you, it'll also clothe you." And so that was the second one to step up. And then as it went by, each and every one of these beings stepped up and said, "I'm Khasia, and I will take care of you." And with the Khasia, on a side note of that, it's a beautiful story as well. The Khasia is stunning. It's a lomatium. And you'll see that here. It's really pretty. And so what it is, it's a lomatium type. And it stepped up to say, "I will take care of you." And with that, it's the prince of the roots. It's the prince of our plants. And so when it said, "I'll take care of you," it was known that the stems and the pieces of these, you'll see a little bit of goldenness in there when we go out to gather them. The flowers, they're brimming yellow. Even some of these bases, you can see where they're a little bit on the yellow side and before they turn into the pink and the green. So they're very vibrant in life. So the thought of it is that the sun, when it comes out, the sun is usually depicted as the color of yellow or gold, and that sun radiates into the ground. Well, the first one to come up, and these itty bitty little sprouts, they're probably like maybe half the size of my pinky. And that's called our Khasia. It's also a timekeeper. So that one said, "I'll step up and I'll take care of you." And when I take the kids to dig this, the tool that we use is called a cup-in. And a lot of people from the Northwest will know what that is. This is something that we would have on our waistband, and we'll grab it by the sides and plunk it down. And then when we plunk it down, we pull it back, and then we pull out the root. And for this one, the Khasia, I'll tell the kids, you know, your bloodlines have already done this. Just like your, you know, your mom, your grandma, your great grandma, they've already done this because these are the foods that we survived on. You don't get them at Safeway. You don't get them at Walmart. You can't buy them anywhere. it's just a sacred food, and the ethic and who you are is what would be provided to feed that community. And so anyway, back to the story. The first one was the Chassia. So that's like a major power one. That one came out in February. So in February, growing up, we wouldn't be thinking, oh, Valentine's Day. No, we would be thinking, oh, it's Chassia time. It's almost time to get ready. It's time to get ready. And so after that, when I was saying it's a storyteller, that plant Chassia, when it grows and it has that little shoot coming up, well, pretty soon it starts to grow even more, and it gets to be in a flower stage. And in that flower stage, it's called latit latit. And there's grandmas that would say the latit latit is a okay, latit means flower. Latit latit, when you say it twice, it means a smaller version, so a small flower. So the latit latit would be peeking out with its beautiful gold flowers, and it would be saying, it's time to get up, it's time to get up. That's what the grandmas would tell us. And so what would be getting up? It would be the piache, the punku, the mamen, the sikawia. And so those are the 4 different roots, the bitter root and 3 bread roots that would jump up. And there's more or less depending on where you're from. I know here where I live, there's about six or 7 of them that come up. So if you can imagine like a race ready to go off and a gun, that's exactly what Chassia season is. It's telling us, get ready, get those bags, get ready. The baskets that we would use to go digging, this one is like a work basket. It's not meant to be like in a museum or anything. And we would wear it on our waist, and we fill it up with the roots. We dig each root up one by one by one by one by one by one with that cupping. And that's a lot of work. So it teaches you patience, it teaches you ethic. And so each one of us are ready in February, are supposed to be ready. And when those roots come out, we have a ceremonial feast in March for those next 4 when those other flowers come out. This is the part I really want to go over too, is there's some individuals when they talk with me, the one thing I always hear and I always get in trouble for is like, Mary Lee, those roots aren't ready. Why are you trying to rush it? Mary Lee, you shouldn't even be doing this. And I mean, I get in trouble a lot. But the reason that it is this way is the way that I was taught, where my longhouse sits. Mount Adams is sitting, oh, it would be on this side, I think. And then the unfurling of the seasons comes from Mount Adams. And so the first one to get ready would be our longhouse, because we're closest to that mountain. And then it would be like Wapato and Toppenish and Sadis and all these different areas. That's what I understood at one time. Things have changed, and I'm not opposed to change. I'm not there to correct or say right or wrong, good or bad. I just know that's kind of what was taught. And then so after those roots come about, oh, and I have some of those samples here too. Let me see. So this, I'm going to put this aside. This is a big bucket of piache. So this is probably like maybe 1, 2, 3 hours worth of work for one person. But the piache is that first one in March that comes out. And usually it used to come out like even in the beginning of April. I'll try to put it closer. But what ended up happening, I think, whether it's global warming, climate change, we're now digging as early as like even the second week of March, sometimes the first. And so those, those kind of questions when people say you're digging too early or something, that's my understanding. So back to the story. Then the Piache, Panku, Mamen, and Sikawia, they all jumped up and said, I will I will take care of you. And with that, the Creator brought in a woman. So there was a man to fulfill the hunting and the fishing, and the bone structure of that man is thicker. He's got a thicker bone structure. So he was like the protector of the community. He was the hunter, he was the fisherman. And then back, at the time, the woman was there and she did the roles of the roots and the berries. And so those two together would make a commitment that this promise of taking care of these foods would go in unison, because this whole teaching is all about alignment and it's all about balance. And so after those roots, and that was in March, we also had some of the berries that would come up. And just like we had sawit, that would be the tail end of the roots. We also had other ones too. I don't want to, discount those. And I can go through the entire lineup if you'd like when we go through this. But for story's sake, the next one to show up was the choke cherries. And then the last was the huckleberries. And so if I interchange, I'm usually thinking like Tamash, Tamish, Wunu, Piache, Punku, all of those, the native words, because when the Creator calls us at our end of life, he's going to say Smanati to me. And so that's our honored names, and the honored names on the table for each one of these foods, they have their sacred names. And then off the table, so like fish, mainstream word, I guess, would be salmon. Native word for it would be nusach. But then once it turns over and it honors itself in a sacred mannerism, then it's Waikanish, because it has a different role. But we were taught that because that's that connection with the Creator. So when it's our time, when we're called, the Creator will call and say Smanati. It won't say Mary Lee, it'll say Smanati. And so the importance of that identity is huge. So each one of those beings, they said, I promise myself to you. And so with that, the promise that was given to man and woman was to in turn take care of the plant. It was to take care of the soil, to take care of the water, to take care of the air. The last one that gave itself to us, of course, is water. It's first and last, really. But in doing this, that's the order of the foods. So it starts off with, and I'll say it in English as much as I can anyway, because I don't know the English word on some of these. So it would be, the first thing we would honor would be the salmon, Waikanish. The next one would be deer, Winnet. And then the next one, and you'll see them set out in order on our Thule mat. And the reason it would be on a Thule mat, and I'm skipping all over the place here, but a Thule mat is made of Thule reeds, kind of those things that would sit almost next to like the cat reeds that you would see like in pond areas, marsh areas. And the Thules, do I have one with me? I don't think I do. But the Thules, no, I don't have it with me. They lay flat and they almost look like your fingers. But the base of those Thules, when you lay them down, you put anything on there that you want to be held in a hierarchy of, almost like if you could lay it on a Bible, very sacred. That's the only thing I could think of that's similar to it. But the reason that it's held that way is the root, and it's against my law that I believe in, to dig the root up, because the root is the shape of a Mother Earth's heart. It's really shaped, it's a shape of a heart, and not like this kind of heart, but like a human heart. I've never dug one up, so I just take it upon faith. That's what I was told. So that's, I don't do that. So every one of those foods are put on a tule mat at each feast so we can remember that promise. And the cool thing about this is if you really break it down, you want to know about the identity. So if I said to you, and I'm going to say this for some of the non-Yakimas or non-Umatillas or Sahaptin, Ichishkin speakers, if I said Nachshni Matat Pini Pachat, and I said, you need to tell me now what that means. Say it, say it. And if I had a knife against your throat and I said, say it, tell me what that means. Nachshni Matat Pini Pachat. And you would be like, I don't know. Well, that's how serious it was back in the day with our tribal people, our ancestors, because they struck these treaties with you know, all the people that came over, and the highest of importance to them was to keep our lands, our usual and accustomed places. And it's really beautiful that they did that because they didn't know how to speak English. They didn't know how to do that. And so when we are able to go into our indigenous lands, our indigenous places, you know, we're really lucky that we can see some of the plants that are still there. So I think what I'm going to do now, because it is, I've got about 20 more minutes. Oh, I was also going to show this one too. So you'll see this one is a different kind of weave, and this one is a little bit more sturdier. I don't know if you can hear it. That one's pretty hard. Well, this one is used for, guess, see the pretty little stains in there, for huckleberries, and also for chokecherries, and for currants and elderberries, because it holds it so it doesn't squish when you're going to do something. Versus this one where you put the roots in, and then typically on like the big ones, you'll see little straps on the side here, so you can do like a cross star with the string on the top and cover it. But this is this one would be for the roots. This is a little girl's one, and this one's made out of yarn. It's just, and you'll see the spokes on these, the fillers, they're really thick. We have some that are really fine, that are old, and they're my mother's and stuff like that. So I think what I'm going to do is kind of go into the foods and why they're important, and share some of that stuff, because it's kind of exciting. So the first one, like I said, this is the salmon, and the salmon, you'll see some of the white stuff in there. Those things, all of that oil, it's so needed. It's so needed in our diet. Now, the scary thing about it is there's the toss up, there's controversy because, you know, of like Hanford and some of the stuff that happened with all the nuclear stuff some time ago. There's a lot of people in our area that are having deficiencies with their thyroid output. And so there's a whole bunch of different situations. And some of them, whether it be that or the cancers, they're saying they're linking them to. So they ask like some of the nursing mothers not to eat the salmon. And then also they ask that, so you can see with this one, I don't know how well you can see it. I'm going to spin it around here and tip it. So you'll see that there's the skin on this was we took that out. And they said that's because that's where most of that content lies, is within the skin. So that's the first one, but that's not the only way that it's taken care of. We also can it, we freeze it. And a lot of people in the Northwest are gonna know that. Oh, I should have brought some of the wind dried. We do that too. But this right here is my favorite. I don't know if you can see it. This is called chalai. I wish you could try a bite of this. So it's kind of like, you know, in high school, we had this little brown container that looked like a snuff container, but it had beef jerky that was shredded in it. That's what this is like. And so when you have this, it just melts in your mouth. You can put it on potatoes or anything, but this is something that, this is another way that we take care of the salmon. And this is the first year for myself and my daughter, that we actually got to go fishing together, and that was very fun. That was a beautiful thing to see my daughter catch her first salmon. So after that, I have some of the dried meat and stuff, but I have not gone hunting, and that role is usually in my family secured by the men folk. Although I have a lot of friends that they hunt as well, and so I don't discard that, because at this day and age, there's no hate or shame or anything involved. It's just the way it works. We're in dynamics of healing, and so some of us have to take up roles that traditionally we didn't. There's men folk that I've gone digging with because they've lost their mate to cancer, and there's the men folk that gathered the berries or the roots. They had the responsibility of sharing that for their children, for their grandchildren, for their daughters, or things like that. So that's the first two. Now the second, the other one that we have is called cassia. Let me see. That's my seeds. So I have some. This one you can't really see it that well. It's ground up, but the cassia, what I do with that is I'll dry it and I'll make it into a tea. And so you'll see. I'll try to see it. So and really all it is just like we do with the other tea that you would buy, like Lipton's. You just stick it in a little packet and you let it steep, or put it in like a little strainer. And so that's the first one. And then the second one I showed you already, that was the Piaget. And this is a smaller bag, a smaller version of it. Now, something kind of fun about this that I want to share. It's not really fun, but it's good to know. Let me see, what did I do with my achush? So if I was to go on here and Google the name, so the English, okay, how do I say this? My name is, for the root, is Piaget. So the mainstream is bitterroot, and it's the state flower for Montana. It's, I don't know, just so much to it. And then the scientific name is Lewisia redviva. And how we got that name was Lewis and Clark, once they trekked around, they came over and they was showed this plant. They stuck it in a book and they pressed it so they could send it on down. Well, what ended up happening is when they got back over to the East Coast and shared that plant, the flower in that plant had blossomed. So hence the word redviva. And Lewisia came, of course, from Lewis and Clark. So resilient, vibrant, oh gosh, I guess those are the words that would best describe it. So Lewisia redviva was the name. So then if we take your phones and we look it up, there it is. Ooh, can you see it? I don't know if you can see it. There it is right there. That's what it looks like when it's flowered. So, oops, sorry. So then if I go to hit the shopping button for Lewisia redviva, then we'll come across Etsy, we'll come across Plants for Home, we'll even come across like Walmart and different places, and they'll sell these plants for $3.68, $4.99, you name it. And so when the elders see that, I can't get that in there good, but you can Google it. See the prices? And then the elders are like, oh, see, this is what I told you. The white man has gotten our sacred plants. And see, this is what we was fearful of. And I agree that we, and it was taught to hold these plants in high regard. But I want to share this part to you. This is coming from me, Mary Lee. It's not from Yakima Nation. It's not from anywhere else, but knowledge is powerful when it's shared. And so some of the people I know even in like Warm Springs, they've forgotten our Umatilla country or Colville, even us for Yakimas, we forgot one of the plants on the process of how to make it. And so we extend that reach out to some of our brothers and sisters in those Indian lands. But then there's also a beautiful plant that comes out now, and we'll be gathering it in another week or so. My family will. But the way that I learned about it was through books and through ethnobotanists, those individuals that study plants. Now, the reason that's important is because one, you get to speak up for the plant and say, you know what, you might want to be careful with that. University of Oregon for growing lomatium plants and taking into account this is a traditional food, or I don't know who else you talk to, but even local places around that sell Louisa Red Viva for landscaping. And then trying to help the elders understand that there's more than one way to view this plant, just like we all wear different hats. So, I'm a mother, I also work with BI Social Services, I'm a swan dance captain, I'm, all these different hats. Well, that's the same with our foods. They all have their own role. And so in saying that, we get to advocate and speak up for those plants a little bit more. So anyway, the next one is this punku. I'm going to kind of go through this a little bit on the quicker side because I'm kind of dawdling here. So each one of these were dug by that stick, that cupping. And, I think I counted. I was bored as heck, bracing myself. And I like to be out there. The birds talk to you. My daughter, she can find like the biggest punku and the biggest piache whenever she follows like the deer tracks. So the animals talk to you out there. And the other beautiful thing is that they'll tell you like, I'm growing up to be a piache and I'm medicine for you and I'll help you with diabetes and I'll take care of your body. But it's not trying to say, I'm piache, but I wish I was punku, or I wish I was chaush, one of those other foods, but no, here I am, I'm short and I'm stubby and, I wish I came around in June. They don't do that. Instead, they stand up and they say, I'm piache, I will help your body. I am a medicine and I am powerful. I am good for you and I am in line and I give myself to you. And I think that's what we are as people as well, is I am smanati. I am a helper. I am a tool of the creator to help us all in this world because we all need help. And so that's one of the biggest teachings that I love about the plants. They don't fight amongst their spaces. They coexist. They do exactly what they're supposed to. They all have the sun, they all have the moon, they have the wind, they have the rain. They survive these horrible weather extremes, but they make it. And that's what we have to do as people. We have these hard times. I lost my husband to cancer, and that was one of the worst times in my life, let alone my children's lives. But we survived it, and he's with us still. And so each one of these plants, that's what they teach you, is this whole beautiful thing about resiliency. And so after that, there's punku, let's see, mummin. So this one is a ground up mummin. It's almost like those others, but you'll see it's pretty white. And they're like a bulb when they come out, but we ground it up. And so that one is mummin. There's so many more, I just can't even get them all out. This is more punku. See, we was rich with punku this year. We did really good. And then this is some more of the wind-dried salmon. And, oh yeah, so the third phase of that fascia, and the other one is Khamsi, is they'll come into this beautiful little, let me see if I can grab one for you. I don't know if I can, but you'll see it. It's a little seed pod. Can you see it? Oops. So that seed pod, this is the tea I was telling you about. And this one is an antiviral. So even after it's done, we'll put these in large containers and save them and hold them in case we get sick. We already had our own pharmacy. Let's see. Oh, here it is, my dried deer meat. And let's see, punku. And so this one is sawit. This one is our wild carrots. And this one isn't ground up. But these ones, we just plop them in water just to revive it again. But they really do. They taste like carrots. And that's one of my children's favorites. This one is a favorite of mine. I'm kind of going off the foods and going into medicines. But this one is the black moss that you see growing on the trees. You'll see them hanging down. This is called kunch. And what we have to do is we'll take batches, like bags and bags of this, and clean it out. And it's really nice. It's very therapeutic. And you'll see this one I didn't clean out. It's just a sample one. But you'll see like that little pine needles and stuff because it grows in those trees. And then what we'll do with this is well, you know, if it's done the way it's supposed to, they'll put it in a pit in the ground. And then that fire pit I've not done. I've only cooked mine in an oven before, but it makes this black pudding like texture, and it's so good. But that was a filler for people a long time ago when food was scarce, because remember, we couldn't just run up to Walmart or, you know, open up a can something. We had to go with what was there. And if you look at any old pictures of all of us, there wasn't any obese people. It's because, you know, time was not money. Our value system was totally different then. Whatever we gathered is what we had to share. And as a food gatherer myself, a lot of these foods I don't even get to eat because they actually go to the longhouse. And so this year during COVID, it was kind of nice because I actually got to taste some of them actually fresh. And I love serving people, don't get me wrong, but it's just been a change to do that. So these are some more. This one is a chauch, and that's one that we get out of not Montana, out of Oregon. And this is some ground, the one I just showed you, the carrots sometimes. And all we do is just reconstitute with water to make it some, like almost a mush like. And this is our Cicalia. This is one of the first ones in March. So I think other than that, I had some other things I wanted to share, but I think that's pretty much drawn it to a little bit of a close. What time is it? Yeah. So along those lines, I think once that story would go through with the kiddos, I guess the sad fact about it is some of the problems that we have. And it's hard to say this. So when we talk about this, I don't want to say this like in trying to hurt people's feelings. That's not it. But now, because things have changed to a mainstream clock, time is equal to money. And our value system is so confused. It's so off-centered and off-balanced. And to say that it's not with the indigenous or native stance isn't like we wasted time or we're lazy. Because at those times when we gathered those foods, when we collected them, you had to feed your entire community. You had to feed your household. And so when you were out there, you were gathering. And if you weren't gathering, you were drying, you were processing the food. We couldn't freeze it. We couldn't can it back then. We made, Shiptakai's little parfleches and kept the foods in there too. We had little like storage spaces amongst here and there. We didn't even have set buildings. We had several spaces. And the reason why I hate being federally recognized in that portion is because wherever these foods are from, that's where I'm from. Wherever that salmon's from, that's where I'm from. Wherever the deer is from, that's where I'm from. And if you look in the map, if you Google any one of those foods I just showed you, you'll see some of them are clear up into Canada, all the way down to New Mexico. And look up Luis Red Viva, you'll see that's one of them. That's where I'm from. And so those lines of definition of ownership, our control, they're not there. That promise that we have to protect the lands, it's everywhere and it's throughout time. So those are some of the things that I try to relay to my kiddos. And there's some other aspects that go with it that maybe I can bring my kids into that would help understand, like how it's relayed, some of the different stories, the different things that happen. And one of them is within our swan dancers. I'm also a swan dance coach. So with that comes a whole nother line of teaching. So I think I'm just about out of time. Yep, I've got about 8 more minutes. So I hope I covered everything. We have 4 feasts throughout the year, one usually in February. And it used to be like the tail end of February, but because of global warming, now it's at beginning of February, first or second weekend. We also have the second feast, which is our root feast. And that one is used to be like the 1st of April, but now it's anywhere from first, second, third week of March. The third one that we have is a mini feast, and that's for Sawit, and that's the coming of the current. That's the prince of the berries, Chun, and then the elderberry, Chanan, and then Tamish and Wunu. That's the last. Tamish and Wunu are the last feast, and that's usually, it used to be in September, but in August, but now it's clear into sometimes the first week of July. And also keep in mind it's varying, because now that we have Facebook and social media and the ability to work with other longhouses and gatherers, there's a whole diverse group of huckleberries, as I'm sure there is the other lomatium types and breadroots that I've just shared with you. And so the time that the foods are ready is just dependent on that. And as a food gatherer, and from the White Swan Longhouse, that's why it's important to know when they come out, because the sooner that I see it and I can report to the elders and have them verify, and then they set the date. Once they set the date, then that gives you a longer span to gather the foods. And some people don't acknowledge that, but that's everybody else's practices. This is what's been taught in my heart. So I think that's all I have to share about all of that, though. There's so much more. There's so much more that I'm missing. But the swans, maybe one day I can get my swan dancers on here, and they have the social dances that kind of go around that with, like some of the rules. When you're grieving, we step back. And it's just depending on what group you're with too, because some will say if it's a wife or a husband, you step back, but the children and some of the extended families would still gather because we still had to feed people. And then some would say if you lost a child and it was the mother and the father that stepped back, and maybe even the siblings, but it just depends upon each family, and there's not one set order. So other ones are, some places will say you don't dig while you're pregnant, because you're taking a life, and you have a life inside you. So it's kind of conflicting. And then the other part is they'll say, oh, if you're on your period, if you're on your moon, you're not supposed to. Some will say that. And then some, will say, we don't have a lot of gatherers. We need to get out there. And that's the way it's always been. So I just respect anybody that, wants to go out there and learn. I put my name out there. I offer to help because it's huge. It's big. We need to capture this part of our lifestyle, because that way when somebody asks a question, we know who we are, we know where we come from, and we have that confidence to answer. And that's what I think we all need to do, is be a master in our own lives and remember that voice that's kind of stuck inside sometimes, because those elders, they all live right here in your heart and they all know this, and it's just reconnecting and realigning. It's the best therapy I have, and my daughter and my mother, and it just keeps us going. This is finally the turn. So we enter the fall, and now it's time to start sewing, repairing, fixing, and getting ready for February. Indian New Year's, we start the like proclamation of the plants are turning, they're starting to come up, and that's in December, Indian New Year. Let's get ready. We've got like 7 to 12 weeks, depending on what the winter's like, to get ready for the next plants. So that's pretty much all I have to share. I've got 3 minutes left, Jillian. So I appreciate being able to share some of this. It's kind of hard because I'm sitting here just talking to myself, but I enjoyed this. So thank you. And if you have questions, just shoot towards Jillian or Lavina. Thank you.